After a violent 2020 in New York City, the people of the Big Apple decided they had enough. So they elected a former cop, Eric Adams, mayor, to stop the crime surge. Adams wants to bring back a reformed version of the NYPD's anti-crime unit. But not everyone is excited about this.
If they think that they're going to go back to the old ways of policing, then we're going to take to the streets again. There will be riots, there will be fire, and there will be bloodshed.
Riots, fire, and bloodshed. I think that was a threat. That was BLM's New York co-founder, Hawk Newsom. Instead of helping clean up the city street, he's threatened to paint them with red. Sounds like he wants New York to follow the lead of Los Angeles, where police are simply giving up, telling potential robbery victims to not resist, just hand over their things. Here's a thought. How about you crack down on crime instead of telling your citizens to roll over for the criminals? Let's bring in Jeff Charles, host of Fresh Perspective podcast and KTTH Seattle radio host, Jason Rance. Thank y'all so much for being with me today. Jason, I mean, the message is pretty clear here. Let the criminals do whatever they want to do. I think this was incitement pretty much, right?
Yeah, I mean, clearly, but I can't claim to be shocked. You start with New York City, for example. You had Democrats for months last year deciding to be okay with riots, with violence, with burning down buildings and destroying neighborhoods. And as a result of that, did a lot of people go to jail? Did a lot of people get prosecuted? No. However, guess what did happen? We saw defunding of police in New York. We saw it happening all across the country. We actually rewarded that kind of behavior. And so if you are the type of person who turns to violence and then you see you've been rewarded for it, no punishment whatsoever, well, guess what? You're probably going to turn to that yet again when you might not get your way. And it's not just about this group. It's about all the people who aren't talking about it, like the Antifa lunatics who got away with this as well. They're not going to go on TV or hold any press conference. They're going to secretly communicate electronically, and then they're going to go out and they're going to follow suit. So this is something that is a very clear threat, and we do have to pay attention.
You know, Jeff, there are legitimate reforms that can happen. But having anarchy in the street, setting things on fire, then making sure that black folks in our communities in Harlem, the Bronx, Brooklyn get shot up, I don't think that's the recipe that our people want or America wants.
No, not at all, Lawrence. I mean, here's the thing. I get the whole police reform thing. I am for police reform. Not defunding the police, but I am for police reform. There are changes that do need to be made. However, bringing up the threat of violence is not the way to address this situation. And my question that I would put directly to Hawk Newsom, when you talk about things like bloodshed, when you use the word bloodshed, whose blood do you think is going to be shed? Yeah, we already know the answer to that question. It's going to be people that look like you and I, Hawk Newsom. It's going to be black men. I am sick of dead black bodies in the street, whether it's from the police or whether it's from violence in the community. And I know Hawk Newsom cares about those things because he's talked about both. But when you use words like bloodshed, to me, there has to be a better way to deal with this issue. No more dead black bodies dying needlessly because people want to riot. This is not what we should be encouraging. And I know that when he talked with the New York Post, and I know he kind of tried to clarify what he said, but it's already out there. The damage is done. And when you're in that position of leadership, you need to be looking for solutions that are going to safeguard black lives and the lives of the rest of the people in the community.
You're so right. You know, Jason, whose blood? Whose blood is going to be on the street? I'm just curious, when he says blood, what blood is it? Who is it?
Well, I mean, I'm presuming that he's talking about the officers who are out there. I mean, you go after your enemies in war, and they believe that this is an actual war. And if you're talking about it in terms of that kind of violence, I'm only going to presume that they're going to target police officers. Now, we've obviously seen police officers being targeted in this country as a result of the last year's worth of activism. And that's obviously a huge concern for a lot of officers at a time where police departments are losing cops left and right because they don't want to have to put up with this sort of nonsense anymore. And it would be one thing if they were able to actually make these arrests and have the charges stick with these activists who are choosing to break the law instead of doing actual activism. But that ends up not happening. And that's actually, if you look in Los Angeles, part of the reason why they're giving that kind of advice is, yeah, the cops can make all the arrests that they want. Unfortunately, you still need prosecutors and judges to put these people in jail, and they're not.
Yeah. And there's blood all throughout the street of New York. people being pushed into trains, people being shot up for absolutely no reason, criminals getting away with it. The DA is allowing criminals to get back on the street, recommit these crimes. I mean, there is a broken justice system, and the voters rejected it in New York. You would think the activists would get a clue. Anyway, Jeff, Jason, thank y'all so much for joining the program.